Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight I want to talk about something very important. Prepare for war in the time of peace. And what I mean by prepare for war in the time of peace, we have in America in the political climate that I truly believe it is a smoke, a dud to keep people distracted from certain realities. And something that we need to pay close attention to is that we prepare for war in the time of peace. A lot of us, especially those who live within the US, there is a delusional luxury that people live. There's a delusion that we live in based on luxury and certain type of material uh, progress, meaning by having a certain amount of things or having a certain amount of materialistic things that give us an illusion that we are in a place or in a time of peace and luxury, when in reality there is a dud in the room, a smoke grenade. Some of us can see it, some of us can't see it. Many times I talk about on this particular channel about far right politics and how some of the Muslims are involved in it. Sometimes I talk about the left, and the base of the program is Islam in general. But I want to let the people know that the far right and the far left, that both of them, the left wing and the far right wing, are two wings on the same bird. So no matter how we put it, how we talk about it, how we look at it, the left and the right are the same entity in the same government. You prepare for war in the time of peace. What do I mean by this? Prepare for war in the time of peace. I truly believe that some of the direction that American politics are going, or what is being fed to the American people, that it should bring certain Muslims, of us Muslims in the West, we should sit down and reflect, right? While people in politics, whether it's the liberals or the conservatives, they are fighting amongst each other. Some of the debates or the talks or the topics is related to racism in America, white supremacy, which I always talk about. Uh, People talk about those who don't have and those who have and those who don't. Immigration, um, left politics, like the LBGQTI agenda and all these things. Us as Muslim could really take some lessons. And us Muslims, deep down inside, we should really look at the surface of what's going on in the US and sit back and realize that al-Islam, Dinu al-Islam, the religion, it has solutions for people. You prepare for war in the time of peace. So I really want to talk about those Muslims who are the product of Dawah, right? Those Muslims in the West who are the product of Dawah, whether you're a convert or whether you're first or second generation, those who are the product of Dawah, we need to look at things in an objective way where Islam have some of the answers. And I like to reflect on the reverts, the converts. All right. And if I look in North America, in North America community, Muslim community, we will find that the Muslims who are revert or from the revert community, we are different shades of colors. All right. Myself, black. All right. We have black converts, white converts, Latino converts, Asian converts. All right. And I'm speaking on what is based on my observation. Right. We have many reverts in this country, and just in North America alone, which includes US and Canada, that when we look at the revert community, that we are a very much diverse community. We are very much diverse. We live, some of us, we are our extended families, Muslim families, for the revert community, where in one part of the US or one part of Canada, us reverts, despite it being black or white or Asian or African or from the Caribbean islands, that we become each other extended family. So if I look even at my own self and my own companions, and then I would sit back and say, all my companions and associates, there's a difference between companions and associates, right? If I look at my companions and my associates from the revert community, I'm going to find it's a rainbow, meaning that it's various different ethnic groups. You have Black Americans, you have white Americans, all right? You have Black Americans and Latinos. Me being from New York, so most of the revert community here in New York is mostly Black and Latino, right? Black and Latino. If I go to another part of the US, you're going to find the revert community, Blacks and whites. If I go to another part in the US, you're going to find the revert community, Latino and whites. If I go to another part of Canada, you're going to find the reverts, white Canadians and Afro-Caribbean, or white Canadians and Afro-Caribbean. If I go another part of Canada, you're going to find a white, right, and some indigenous, right? I have come into people's from many years of talking about Islam online, and I have even met in Canada Muslim who are indigenous, who are reverts from the indigenous community in Canada, right? From certain parts of Canada, and you'll find even in their community is also multicultural from the revert community. So while here in the US, in the political world, where people are fighting on the left and the right over politics, over discrimination or racism, right? And the reason why I talk about racism on this channel, because I'm black and I feel it every day. Racism, I go through it every day from politics, even being a Democratic state. I feel it all the time, even being in a Democratic state that is very liberal, New York, very liberal. because the Democrats in the liberal states don't really want to make the necessary changes to free up from white supremacy. They don't want to do it 100%, right? They don't want to do it, Democrats. They know what the problems are. They see the people complaining, they see the blacks complaining, but they themselves don't want to make the changes necessary to change social issues. For example, here in New York, people are complaining about crime. All the crime, a lot of the crimes are happening, are black people doing the crime. But they don't want to talk about the reason why black people are doing these crimes in New York, because they don't have the income. They don't have the education, and they don't have the income, and there's no jobs. So the Democratic Party is going to say, well, let's do more things for the LBGQTI. That doesn't do anything for black peoples and the people doing crime. Or they would say something like, let's make bail reform. Well, bail reform is not going to change the economical situation of those doing those crimes. So Democrats is garbage at the end of the day. They don't have nothing changed. The conservatives, they also don't have anything. There's going to be anything that's going to be necessary to make any positive changes. Because if we look at the conservatives are the ones who said that Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons. The conservatives are the ones who opened up Guantanamo Bay. The conservatives are the ones who bombed out Iraq and Afghanistan. The conservatives are the one who occupied Afghanistan, who invaded Afghanistan. And the Democrats, when they came into power, they continue it. The Democrats are the ones talking about in the US that they're for minority peoples, but outside of the US, the Democratic administration who run the government are the same governments who are destroying other countries in South America, in the Caribbean islands, like Haiti, for example, right? So it's the Democrats who are talking about in the US, they're for people of color, they're open, but outside of the US, they are destroying other countries and political governments. They're destroying them they consider them to be their opponents. They're destroying them. And these are peoples of color that they are destroying in their country. So Republicans, Democrats, at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning of the video, these two wings, the right wing and the far left wing, and the far right wing, they're the same wings. They're the same. There are two wings on the same bird. Throw them to the side. Within the Muslims in North America, there is an example. And the example with the Muslims in North America, especially from the revert community, as I will keep on saying, you prepare for war in the time of peace, is that we have a very diverse community. It's not fake like how the Democrats say they're for people of color and this and diversity. They're not for diversity. The conservatives, the far right, they're not for diversity. They claim that they're for morals, moralities, and marriage, and preserving people's rights or preserving white people's lives and things like that. But under the Republican Party, when they do get into power, they don't make any necessary changes to end discrimination. So we can't be for either side. Both of them are rubbish at the end of the day. Both of them are rubbish. But within us Muslims in the West, from the revert community, we do have a model, a positive model. And if you look within our communities, you will find that we are very diverse. I'm here on the East Coast, and I go into the Muslim community in the East Coast. It's Black and Latino Muslims. If I go into some places, some masjids in the revert community, the convert community, revert community, I'm going to see more interracial marriages. I'm going to see more interracial marriages. In New York alone, I see a lot of interracial marriages between Muslims, Black and Latino, Eastern European and Latinos. All across the US, I see this. And Canada, the same thing. I see the same thing. I lived in Canada for 2 years, so I know what I'm talking about. In Canada, in the Muslim community, especially on the West Coast, a lot of diversity with the Muslims, interracial marriages, Black and white, Arabs and Asians, Africans and whites, or Blacks and whites, very much diverse. White and Black couples, very much. So that's the sign to show people in the West that, hey, man, the Muslim, especially the revert community, who are Americans and Canadians or North Americans, that with Islam, they're able to live together despite their race. Despite their race. So in this particular conversation tonight, the revert community, and we know what this term means. This term is for the Muslims who convert to Islam, right? This is the words that we have. We even have our own language. We have our own vocabulary, right? Revert. We have our own vocabulary. We have our own culture. We have our own culture because we have our own vocabulary. The revert. Sometimes the Muslim who's from outside, from the Muslim world, hear us say this revert word, right? They're like, what revert means? And be like, yo, it means that the person who left Islam came back. You know, we say we all born in a state of fitra. Right. So when we take the shahada, it's like we are coming back to Islam, even though that's not what revert really means. Right. But we have our own definition for it. Just like in English, you have everyday English words. It means something else in the legal field or medical field. It has a different meaning. So we have our own vocabs. Even in the English language, when we speak English, how the ikhwa are doing today, you know, we have our own vocab. Means that we have our own culture. So the only reason why I'm expressing this now, because I see there are certain groups of Muslims who are not reverts, who come from Muslim countries, that are devastated. I'm going to say it again. They come from Muslim countries where the Muslims in their country destroyed the Islam due to being disobedient to Allah. And because they're disobedient to Allah and destroy Islam, not practicing it, practicing tribalism, practicing division, turn their backs on the religion, and despite them doing all of that, and they're not able to make their way in their own country, they come to the US as immigrants, and under the banner of Islam, they're spreading their politics that have nothing to do with Islam to the convert community. And they don't have the answers. Because they don't even have the answers that's from Quran and Sunnah, is the reason why their countries, they can't make it in their Muslim countries. They can't make it in their Muslim countries. They can't make it in their own Muslim country. And they come and they try to teach us Islam. At the same time, they can't make it in their own countries. because I find they're the ones now who are pushing the liberalism. They are the ones pushing this liberal stuff. They're the ones pushing this far right conservative stuff because the conservative party, the Democratic, the Republican Party, or the far left, the Democratic Party, they're seeking these two groups out as a medium, hoping that if one of them remain in the administration of the government, meaning the head of the government, that if they choose one of these parties, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, that the Republicans or the Democrat is going to make it easy for them to stay in America comfortably, where they don't have to return back to their countries. And they are the ones who was feeding this liberal garbage and this conservative far right garbage. I don't bite my tongue for nobody. But amongst the Muslims who are from the revert community, we have the answers that they don't have. We have no issue building a community together. They have that issue in their country. We don't have no issue with conforming and submitting to the deen of Allah and holding on to the sunnah, even rejecting our cultural things that we grab from America that goes against us. We reject it. That's why I'm wearing jalabiya. That's why my name is Abul Bara. Real name is Muhammad Abdullah, government. We have no problem grasping the deen and making it our real life, but don't be fooled. Many of them cannot get rid of those cultural things. The tribalism, they can't get rid of it. The racism, they can't get rid of it because it's what devour their countries. Look in Yemen right now. Look in Yemen. Yemen today still fighting. Muslims still fighting each other. Look in Somalia. The Muslims in Somalia still fighting each other. Look in Egypt. Spent my time in Egypt. Hard for Egyptians to follow Kitab and Sunnah. Very hard. Very hard. Even in Egypt today, the Sheikh, the Alim, the Sheikh, many people look down at them. I know many Egyptians, Sheikh, Alim, Hafiz in Quran, have problems getting married. Why? The people going to say, oh, Sheikh, the Sheikh, he can't pay his rent. Sheikh don't make no money in the masjid. That's the truth. Don't make no money. I have no real salary. He can't pay his own rent. Hard for him to get married. Hard for him to make a salary. Hard for him to get a job, even in this Islamic school, getting paid a decent salary. $30 a month. What do you think a Quran teacher or Arabic teacher in Egypt makes equivalent to $30 to $40 a month? Us reverts, we don't have this issue when it comes to Quran and Sunnah. We don't have this tribal stuff. Many of us don't have this issue. I just want to put that out there because unfortunately, I find many of the revert communities, due to their low self-esteem, thinking because they didn't grow up in the Muslim family, they don't come from a Muslim country, that they need those peoples, those immigrants who came to this country, who are pushing hard or far with the liberals, or they pushing that conservative garbage or that liberal garbage, because they're fighting for their status in this country to remain here. So if they have to be liberals, and if the liberals appear they're going to keep this administration, they're going to be liberals. That's why you have the Muslims, some of the Muslims in the West, talking that liberal mess, pushing that liberal garbage, because they're fighting to stay in this country. And you have some of those Muslims saying, hey, man, We can't take everything from the liberals, but if we go with the conservatives, we don't have to worry about them pushing the LBGQTI agenda with our kids. But those same liberals hate you for your skin color. Them same liberals, when they're going to go and destroy the Muslim land in the Muslim countries, those liberals going to come for your Muslim children to be their translators for when they go invade these countries. And they're not going to invade these countries and bring Quran and Sunnah. They're going to invade these countries and bring this far right and far left politics over there to cause more division. So from amongst the reverts, we have the answers. We have our own scholars. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, we have our own scholars. Anytime you see a Muslim who came from a Muslim country and they live in the US, the first thing you have to ask them, the first thing you have to think about, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There's no hijrah ba'da fath Mecca." There's no hijrah after the conquest of Mecca. And so you find Muslims from the Muslim country living to stay here, best believe they have some other intention. The only reason to stay in this country is for education, medical service, or some type of knowledge that they don't have in their country, and then go and Dawah, then go back to their countries. Go back to their countries. And if you look from any of these immigrant Muslims, they're not doing this. They may imagine America or the Western countries, they're making it their home. And they're going to take any political position, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, liberals or conservative, they're going to take any one of these positions to help them maintain their wealth that they gather here, their nice homes, their wealth, to stay here. They are not our role models. I don't care how nice they are, even they have Sheikh on their name. I'm not easily fooled. Arab accent, Indian accent, shaking from the name, don't fool me. First thing I'll look is what the book of Allah say. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? There's no hijrah after Fatah Mecca. There's no hijrah after the conquest of Mecca. And I see they here for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They're not trying to go back to their countries. They're not calling to Allah. They're not building no Islamic institutions. They might build a masjid so culturally their people have a place to worship. But they making America their land. That can't be my leader. How can the one who's outwardly disobeying the law be your religious leader? That's some food for thought, man. Because a lot of the revert community, I see we very easily distracted. But we have the solutions. Many of them can't do what we're doing. Many of them can't do it. And don't say, but so-and-so has an American wife. Yeah, she's Caucasian. Yeah. Everybody wants a white woman in their country. All the men want a white woman. That's nothing. That's nothing. You notice they're not married to black peoples. They're not married to the black African-American Muslim. They're married to the white or the Latino Muslima, because the Latino passed for white. But I could find with the revert community, black and whites marrying each other. I know many brothers in North America, white Caucasian, married to black or African women, black American or African women. Many. The Arabs who come here, really, I never see this. Very rarely. Not saying it don't happen, but very rarely you don't see it. You see them Caucasian or Latino women who pass for white. Because they've been colonialized and they replace Islam with colonialism, and they come to America with this mind setting. They don't have the answers. They still have the tribalism. And how can you have this for your religious leaders and your role models? The revert community have the best examples and solutions that they can't follow in the Muslim country. They can't follow these things. They still caught up in tribalism. Why you think there's no Khalifa in these countries? There's no one Khalifa. All the Muslim countries are split up into different countries. They're not one country with different states or different province. They're all split up into different groups and sects, and governments split it up. And no one's forcing them. The kuffar is not forcing them, even though the kuffar helped split them up. But once they ran the kuffar and the colonialists out their country, they remain with the colonialist system. They didn't revert their system back to Islam, but revert to Islam. Alhamdulillah, here. We have our own solutions. I just wanted to say that, man, because I see some of the Muslims, man, we are still revert community. We're not there yet. Even though in America, country, technology and education is at a high level, but some of the Americans, our intellect is not there. Or the intellect is there, but we're not using that same intellect when it comes to our practice and how we understand and operate. But when I look at us as a whole for the revert, we got the solutions. We live in it. We're living it. My personal friends and associates, all from different race. Black, American, Black, Caribbean, white, Latino. Most of my personal associates and friends, Black, Latino, white. Black, Latino, white, my personal friends. Anybody who follow me on Facebook, you're from one of these races. Anybody on Facebook who been on my Facebook page for more than 2 years or more, either you're Black, white, or Latino. Let's be real. If I talk to you every day or every other day or once a week, either you're Black, Latino, or white. In their communities, they don't got no white friends. I mean, they ain't got no Black friends and Latino friends and none of that. That's very hard for them, very tribal. But we following these peoples. That's another problem. How are you going to follow people who themselves see the Kitab and Sunnah as a taboo? The same things that cause them to lose their country, for the countries to fall apart, because they're not holding to Kitab and Sunnah. They come. You think they come to the U.S. and they change their ways? They didn't change nothing. They came here due to them turning their backs on the deen in their country. I don't care they hafiz in Quran. I don't care they have big lihya, big beard and shake and this and that. Just ask them, why are you still in America? Why you haven't built nothing back in your country? I see some brothers posting some poster, some conference, this sheikh from Egypt. You know, Egypt, I lived in Egypt 2 years. Married an Egyptian woman for 11 years. Have 3 children with her. I know Egypt. I see some Egyptians in America preaching. I'm like, yo, man, you need to be preaching in Egypt. You know, in Cairo, in Kahira, they got the youth strung out on drugs in Egypt. Matter of fact, I'm going to link the videos right here. You talk about opioids and all that. In Egypt, the youth be on that stuff. The youth be on that stuff. In Cairo and Alexandria, the youth, males and females, be strung out on this stuff in Egypt. Egypt, a whole bunch of Ahlul Qubur in Egypt. You got so many people from Ahlul Qubur in Egypt. Man, how you guys got time to do all this dawah in America and don't call your peoples to Tawheed? They even have some of their own family members into this stuff. And they don't go back to their country to establish Islam or to call the people to Allah. But they want to be in America. Something is very fishy about that. I don't let no name Sheikh and Lisana Arabiya or Lisana Arab. I don't let none of that stuff fool me, man. Because I traveled and go to Egypt. Oh man, Egypt got a lot of Ahlul Qubur. Today, my friend was talking about, and somewhere in the Southeast Asia, non-Muslim country, that the people live in the graveyards. Man, I saw him. Like, you talking about? I said the Arab Muslim country, same thing. Show him a clip in Egypt, in Cairo. They got a whole city. People live in the graveyard because they have so much poverty there. Poverty, poverty there. Poverty. People can't afford to live in decent homes. They have to live in graveyards. So when you find these people here in America, first you're gonna ask why you're not in your country calling your people to Islam. And don't believe these governments in these countries, especially Egypt, they're not anti-Islam. Because a lot of Arabs try to say that, oh, the government hate Islam, hate Islam, hate Islam. Nah, la, 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 la. Egypt government don't hate Islam. Egyptian government don't hate Islam. Egyptian government don't hate Islam. They might not be practicing everything from the Sharia law, but they don't hate Islam. What Egyptian government cares about, oh, we don't want no Khawarij blow up stuff and kill people and kill the Muslims. That's what they don't want. That's why their government be harsh. People talk about the Egyptian government is not good. No, it is hard on the Khawarij people and Takfiris and terrorists. They be hard on those peoples. So you gotta ask some of these brothers when they be here in America, like, yo, what's your end game? Your peoples need you back in your own country. The revert community, we have a lot of our own solutions for our problems. And some of us, you really look at us, we're already diverse. We're already diverse. They're not diverse. Diversity is very hard for them. Trust me, I live in the all Bangladeshi community. Diversity is very hard for Bangladeshi. Somebody non-Bangladeshi is very hard. I live in New York. New York has Muslims from every single nationality. Diversity is very hard for the Muslims from Muslim countries. Very hard. Very hard. You have down the street African masjid and right up the block are all Arab masjid. They can't even pray Eid together. They can't even pray Eid together. They got one block all from Bangladesh, and the next masjid all for Pakistan. They can't even pray Eid together. They don't have the diversity. They still caught up into the tribalism. So they can't give us any answers. They themselves can't even comply to the Kitab and Sunnah themselves. Very hard. I just want to say that, man. I see a lot of Muslims, man. A lot of the revert communities, man. You guys are could be easily misguided. Very easily. Because you see lihya and you see beard and you see this and oh, you hear the Muslim name and that and the improper English or the accent, and then you're like, oh, that's the authentic Islam. It's very hard for them. I'm telling you, very hard for them to comply. Outwardly, you have the images. Outwardly, inwardly, very hard to comply. Culture before deen. Culture before deen. Culture before deen. Culture before deen. Bid'ah before the Sunnah. Bid'ah before the Sunnah. Bid'ah before the Sunnah. I'll end on that particular note.